And so awesome. I have amazing guest today, Jordan Lips, in my podcast. So we are going to talk about a little bit weight loss plateaus, reverse dieting, and some other random fitness stuff. So hopefully you will enjoy. And but before getting started, Jordan, tell a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what you are doing, where you live, and what you do.
Yeah, I'm a personal trainer, nutrition coach. Been a personal trainer for a long time in person. Then I owned a gym for a little bit, and then COVID hit, and I moved into the online space, and really enjoyed that a lot. I work with people one-on-one on a wide range of health-related goals. Really enjoy coaching people for hypertrophy specifically. That doesn't mean they need to be advanced at all. And so now I run a group program, a little bit lower cost option where we just do programming for hypertrophy, really focused on like bang for your buck, not spending your whole life in the gym, making it a little bit more accessible in terms of, you know, it not being 5 90-minute workouts a week. And so that emphasis on a more of a minimum effective dose, more on efficiency versus, you know, optimal. That's definitely where my passion is with my own life. And also what I like to teach and coach, helping people get, you know, good results, you know, whatever, build muscle, get stronger, all that stuff without spending their whole life in the gym.
Yeah, no, I love it. And that's why I relate so much with you, because I think we have that kind of same approach, both of us. Like there's a life to live, and fitness is even it's a big part of our life. It shouldn't be only thing in the life, and there are a lot other things, and you should be able to enjoy also life while making best possible progress with your efforts. So. So how we know each other's, like we have been in a same coaching membership, and that's how I think first time met, like with Jordan Sayed. That's a couple years ago, and since then I've been following and really seeing what your stuff you're doing, and really enjoy your content. And you have podcast as well, right? And I was actually listening your podcast and really enjoyed your conversation. And I thought that I want to get you in my show as well.
Sure. Yeah. And those were good times. And I that is obviously how we know each other. And you have gone on to do amazing things. I mean, both of us were like, I don't know your whole story at the time, but I recall that like a lot of the people in that group, Jordan Syatt's like online mentorship, we were people who had been in the space and been working with people, but it was like, it felt like it was a bunch of people that were new to working online.
Yeah.
And it has been crazy just to see you just blow up. You've been doing awesome. So that's so cool to see, like, just that. I mean, both of us felt like we were just starting out at that time. And so really cool to see you've been doing an amazing job.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's and this is like something like what you see, like there are obviously always in those kind of groups, there are many people that you don't, they don't get maybe success in the beginning, but probably basically everybody who I know, who I see consistently doing the job, what they know, to keep posting, keep helping people for free. What is the best way to grow social media? At least in some point, they have had some form of success in online coaching or any other part of life. So that is that's so amazing to see. And it's not only about coaching part, it's in everything you do in your life, that once you don't, like Jordan Sayed is loving to say, that once you don't give up, you can't fail in this thing.
True. Very true.
So I wanted to talk a little bit with you about diet or weight loss plateaus and reverse dieting. You had an amazing reverse dieting conversation with Eric Drexler, if I pronounce it right. My English is not so perfect, but I really enjoyed that conversation. But before getting deeper on that reverse dieting conversation, I would love to know, like, how when you see that when you work with the people who have a plateau, what kind of advice you are going to give for them?
Yeah. So that listen, everybody who tries to lose fat at some point will meet some form of resistance at some point where things aren't going as well. You know, the idea that you go into a fat loss phase, you pick a calorie amount, you start doing it, and you just ride off into the sunset and lose all the weight you wanted, and it just goes perfectly without any adjustments is, you know, rarely the case. And so, you know, at some point there's a fork in the road where decisions need to be made about what you want to do, because maybe fat loss slows down or stops altogether. And so that certainly does happen. Let's just normalize that for starters here. And I think the important, there's some, like, I always view this like as like some form of a flow chart, like where there's like, we have to start with certain questions and then we can move on to other questions. And I think the important thing for a lot of people to understand is when you, let's say you go 3 weeks, 4 weeks without losing weight, and that, like, we have to define what a plateau is.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about 3 daily weigh-ins in a row where you didn't lose weight. I'm not even talking about 1 week on average. For me, we don't even talk about making adjustments for at least 2 to 4 weeks. I mean, 2 weeks would be the absolute minimum. That would have to be somebody on like an actual timeline for some, reason that we've decided there's a timeline, which isn't always the best plan, but whatever. And if you are not losing weight over that period of time, like, you're not in a calorie deficit. And I'm not trying to be annoying with that statement, but we have to operate from that point of like, you're not in a deficit anymore. We could talk about why that is. We can talk about, we can go into the physiology, the metabolism side of it, but we need to start with that, because some people will be like, oh, I'm not losing weight in a deficit, or I've been in a deficit for 4 weeks and I'm not losing weight. And I think it's just important to just start with, you're not in a deficit. And so what do we now do with that information? We all just need to foundationally get on the same page with, you're not in a deficit anymore. So from that point, we only ever have 3 options. I mean, it's the same options you have all the time. And it's, again, these sound like simple things, but I think we'll get to kind of where people can go kind of off the rails a little bit, but you only ever have the same 3 options. You can either eat less, right? Or move a little bit more, AKA try and recreate a deficit, try and open up that deficit a little bit more. You can stay with what you're doing, be a bit more patient and see what happens, right? Sometimes you're not being patient enough. Sometimes maybe it's been 2 or 3 weeks and, maybe there's some whoosh coming, or maybe you haven't been super consistent. And instead of making a change to the plan, you're going to like just buckle down and make sure, not buckle down, but like do an internal audit of, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? So option 2 is change nothing about the plan and be a little bit patient. And option 3 is eat a little bit more. And that's kind of something we're going to talk about today, because I say that and then people are like, you're against reverse dieting, I thought. And so you only ever have 3 options. You can eat less, which, to push the deficit greater. You can eat the same and be a bit more patient, or you can eat more. And I would frame that not in a pursuit of fat loss, as a form of taking a mental break from this. And so those are the 3 options that I will just make sure that we're all on the same page. There is no 4th option. There is no eat more so I can hack my metabolism. There is no more like, well, I'll just cut out carbs so I can intermittent fast, or I'm going to eat less and make a deficit. I'm going to eat the same. I'm going to be patient. I'm going to eat more, and I'm going to take a break. And I think that that's a very important place to begin in terms of the discussion with a client. It's just making sure that we're all on the same page, that those are the only 3 options that we ever have.
No, because this is exactly like most of the people like that. First, that is the definition, like that. I get, I'm sure you get also like messages that, oh my God, I gained 2 kilos scale weight when I eat a little bit more in 2 weeks. That is that going to be fat or weight or what is going on? Or then, that I haven't lost weight for 2 weeks, and that's not the plateau yet. So then it's like you said, first, what is the definition of plateau, and when it really is that average, like how you are measuring it. Like there are so many ways how to do it. Like I see it myself. I kind of do kind of mindful fat loss phase at the moment for myself, and really like trying to focus on action, even not counting calories accurately, but have seen that average scale weight is going down. And if I really think it, and if I'm 100% honest with all my actions, what I'm doing, I'm getting how my actions have been aligned with the goal. So probably I'm eating 300-400 calories less per day, what my maintenance is, and that is leading around pound per week or 0.4 kilos per week average weight loss within past 4 or 5 weeks, and that is what you can expect. And if I know that I need to go to, I gotta go to. I'm going out for a weekend, having a boys' weekend, having maybe some drinks and some other stuff. Progress is not. It's still there, but it's not going to be as fast as my actions are not aligned, and it's really hard phase. So What I wanted to really talk about is like that obviously that is the number one option. What I think most people still think that they are like, it's okay, I got to eat less and move more. But I really think that it's okay. For some cases, it might make sense. But for most cases, that's probably, especially in a long term, that's the worst strategy you can actually have. Because the question is that how low you can go.
Yeah. So you're saying that, so I keep going with that. Keep going with that. Cause I might poke around with that. So you're saying, okay, so if you, how would you handle that situation if somebody's plateaued? I mean, which of those three options is the one that, I mean, obviously we'd have to have somebody here to answer that question.
Yeah. No, it's no, but like you said, that it's especially, it depends obviously how long you have been, what is your activity level, and how long you have been in deficit. Like if I let's say that I'm working, if it's 3 to, I would say not more than, if it's 4 months, that's already, unless you have is a person who have like really lot of weight to lose. But for most of the people, I would say 3 to 4 months in a deficit is a very long time, and after that, even you still have some weight to lose, you should probably, from my opinion, consider at least an option to go away, especially if you hit the plateau.
Yeah. I think we have to deal with the individual in front of us, like you're saying. I think there's some things that are worth noting. I think there are things we do as coaches that fall into two camps. Or things not that we do as coaches, but we help our clients do that have a physiological advantage, that are actually like changes to the plan, like creating a deficit, or things that are actually going to physically change the results. And then there are practical things that we do to help our clients succeed in the long term, like encouraging them to occasionally take a break. Like you said, okay, this person's been in a deficit for 4 months. That's a long time. Like, there's no amount of time that your body's going to like something happens. And I know you're not saying that, but I'm just saying that it's not like, oh, I've been in a deficit for X amount of time, and now my body has had some sort of response to the amount of time that it has been undernourished. But you might say practically, I'm dealing with somebody who's been in a restrictive mindset, maybe a little tired, not feeling great, not in the best headspace. And for that period of time, for 4 months, I might be dealing with somebody who, if I want long-term success, that what's probably best for them is to psychologically take a break. Now, that circumstance happens all the time. And again, it doesn't really come down to some specific time frame. It certainly comes down to the individual. I have people that are in deficits for 8 straight months and they do great. And I have other people that after 3 months, they're like, I probably do better with a 2-week off or a week off, or, some form of a diet break, in air quotes. But there's 2 buckets. Those are practical things. They have nothing to do with optimizing metabolism or optimizing hormones or optimizing none of that. It has to do with psychology. And that doesn't, I'm not undermining the benefit there. I think there's a ton of benefit there. I mean, I think a lot of people need to be more so considering their psychological state, how much they're enjoying things, how shitty they feel on average. But a lot of people aren't. They're making decisions based on what they think is going to like somehow hack their metabolism or something like that. Like, it's diet breaks, like everything we're talking about, a diet break. So if we look at this on like a time scale, a refeed, a diet break, a maintenance phase, a reverse diet, they all are the same thing. They're all periods of time where you're eating more. Right. A refeed was like this 2-day refeed. A diet break is like a 7-day refeed. Like a maintenance phase is like a 1-month refeed. A reverse diet is just, eating more. There are all these periods of eating more. And so that we know that none of the periods of eating more have a lasting physiological benefit. They make you feel better while you're eating more. And when you go back to eating less, you feel like you're eating less. And so we need to make sure that we're choosing the best strategy for the person in front of us. And some people do really great without diet breaks. Some people do great with diet breaks. Some people do really great with calorie cycling, where they have 2 higher days and some lower days. Some people do really great with 3 months in a deficit, 1 month out of a deficit. Some people do great in perpetuity, never getting out of a deficit. And just like hitting consistency and getting some momentum and all that stuff. And so I just think that we need to be making, not we, like me and you are doing something wrong, but I think as an industry, we need to start just looking at the individual, what's going to help them be the most successful based on what we know about them, not that there's something broken about their metabolism. We could talk about that a bit more about what some of the misconceptions are, but none of the decisions you're making in that moment have to do with your metabolism. They have to do with you as an individual and how you're feeling and what's going to make you ultimately the most successful.
Yeah. Awesome. Now that is so well said. And I wanted to now we are that we go a little bit that what I originally wanted to talk with you is about reverse dieting, and that why that eating more, that what kind of benefits you already a little bit touched about it, like that it's not that like if you see that you started to eat more, you started to lose weight, and what is going on, like it's never going to be some long-term strategy, but it's that because you can't break those like energy balance, like that it's still that energy balance, calorie deficit is the way how you lose weight or fat, but it's just that breaking the physiological part, like that if somebody is eating like what is most common, like I get the people like for example, like one who said that, like, look, maintenance calories should be 2,400, coming to me starting and saying that, claiming I obviously I can't know what she was doing before we started to work together, but saying that eating 2,400 calories, not making any progress, not making progress at the gym. And I was like, okay, let's see first what you are eating before we making anything, just telling what you are actually eating. And it was very little amount of food. And but then just I kind of pinch every once in a while, and that is something like that, weekend is coming, you eat very little, and you don't even recognize it, but you might eat like a lot more calories than you should be eating, and that is leading that you are not actually in a deficit. Or then other aspects, like you already touched a little bit, is that you are actually your energy out, like how many, like obviously it could be, there might be some little adaptation, which is probably not going to be as big as most people think, but it's just that you are not as active, even you might take some steps, but you are not like we are here in Italy, we talk with the hands and are using facial impressions. So those kind of things, they are, when you eat very little for a longer period of time, they have been adapted a little bit. So what you would say for someone, that kind of person like us? The question is that if you are eating very much below your maintenance calories, and you are not making progress. So what steps you would start with somebody like that who is not getting progress while eating very little calories when maintenance calories should be higher?
Sure. There's a ton to go into. The one thing that I'm feeling very passionate about right now, and to just discuss with myself, with clients, is we are way too sure about our numbers. We're way too confident with all the numbers that go into creating our expectations. So when this person comes to you and comes to me, these people, whatever, the circumstance happens to everyone, where at some point they're like, well, think about all the assumptions in terms of how certain we are about these numbers. So first you put your number you put your height, weight, age, and activity level into a calorie calculator. So your first guess was activity level. That was your first guess. And that by definition, it's not perfect. No matter what, even if you make the most accurate guess on a calculator, it's not perfect. Second, that calculator doesn't take into account any genetic factors. And then it spits out a number. And you take that number and you assume, yep, this is exactly my number. Now, that assumption is already potentially incredibly far off based on the activity level that it almost certainly have overestimated, because just in general, based on the tons and tons of research, we radically overestimate how much we move. Then this thing doesn't take into account your genetics. And then you take this number and you then go and you start eating a certain amount of calories. You're eating under that. Then that number, you are so sure that that's how much you're eating. So you're so sure this is what your metabolism is. And then you're so sure that this is what you are eating. And there's so much variation and uncertainty baked into all of that. And then you're like, well, I'm not losing weight. And it's like, man, I'm not losing weight. The calorie calculator said 2,400. I'm eating 1,400. It's like, number one, your metabolism is almost certainly not 2,400. I'm not sure what it is, but you're looking at that with too much certainty. then you're almost certainly not eating 1400. You're looking at that with way too much certainty. Now, I'm not coming at people like they're lying. It's not about that. It's just that we are all off. That calorie counting has inherent variation. All of us on average will underestimate. Even if you're not underestimating, it's very likely that there's still variation baked into that process. And I think that we need to stop with the expectations and start with focusing on what's actually happening. Like, instead of I should be losing weight, you know, like this is what this person's saying to you. They're like, well, 2,400 is my maintenance. I'm eating 1,400. I should be losing weight. Instead of the wasting time on I should be losing weight, we need to think about why we're not losing weight. And the answer is never. I promise you, there's a bunch of answers on the list of reasons you might not be losing weight, but not eating enough is not one of them. And so no matter what, if you're not losing weight, I promise you, the answer never has anything to do with you not eating enough. That's like saying, I'm trying to save money, and the problem is I'm just not spending enough. Like, there's plenty of reasons why you might not be losing weight, but not eating enough is not one of them. And so you need to stop with the I should be losing weight, but I'm not, and start looking at it from I'm not losing weight because I'm not in a deficit. And what am I going to do about that? Not fretting about the shoulds and my friend who's a similar body weight to me, she loses weight on this many calories, or just stop. Deal with your situation individually. And that starts with something I know that you would probably agree with. It starts with just assessing, not in a neurotic way, but just double checking, triple checking that, like you said, you're not saying you're eating 14, but missing a whole bunch of stuff. And so just start by doing I would say an internal audit of your actions, where you look inward and am I actually doing what I think I'm doing? Let me just first double check with that. Let's just get a little bit of a zoomed in look at what I'm actually doing. And that's kind of what you said as a coach. You'd be like, hey, let's first take a look at what you're actually eating. And more often than not, what ends up happening is the person is under tracking on some level, maybe not that much. Maybe they're doing just fine. But I really feel like I have a lot of clients recently who, once they got rid of what this like mentality of expectations of, I should be losing, they started to look at their own situation, and they're like, okay, like maybe I'm tracking a number that feels low to me. Maybe like I'm 150 pounds and I shouldn't, and I'm eating 1,400 calories. And I really think that should be causing weight loss, but it's not. And then we do an internal audit. We look at their actions, and they are tracking fairly accurately. And we're both sitting there like, mathematically, I would suspect that this would work, but it's not. And so what do you do with that situation? What you do is you say to yourself, how does this client feel? Look at their biofeedback. Are they hungry? Are they tired? Are they food focused? Are they actually portraying like a phenotype of being in a deficit? Do they actually look like someone, sound like someone who's in a deficit? No, oftentimes they aren't. And because they expect to be eating 18 and now they're eating 14, they expect to be losing weight and they're not. But if you just took their situation as an individual and you offered them those same three options, it's like, could you eat a little bit less if you wanted to? By the way, I never make a suggestion. This isn't like suggesting people eat less. So that's an option that people have in this moment. Quite often people feel okay eating less. The only thing that's stopping them from feeling okay eating less is this idea that they shouldn't have to. And so a lot of people are like, Greg Nuckols, who's ironically Eric Trexler's co-host on the Stronger by Science, he was talking like he's 220. And he's like, when I need to lose weight, I eat 1,800 calories. Guy's 220, fairly active, eating 1,800 calories. And he says when people hear that, they're like, dude, that's crazy low. You must be so hungry. You must feel like shit. You must feel terrible. And he says to them, he's like, I feel fine. And I lose at a fairly moderate pace that would tell me that this actually isn't a huge deficit for me. And I feel fine and I'm not hungry. And so we this expectation that he's going to feel terrible at 1,800 because he's 220 and that's 8 times body weight or whatever. We need to get rid of that. Start dealing with your own situation. I have a lot of people that could, if I was like, hey, could you be fine cutting 200 calories, which I probably would never say as abruptly, but they would feel fine, except the number and the number would feel low and it would feel way below their expectations. And they'd be, I shouldn't have to go that low and I shouldn't have to. It's like, you do. I'm not telling you to go do that, but I am telling you that our only option, if you want to keep losing, is to eat less. there is nothing in the upward eating more direction that's going to save you from returning back to this situation at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I just, obviously it's like you said, it's a little bit controversial. Ultimately, you have to, if you want to get out of plateau, you have to create a bigger deficit. But that's why I know there is a science between like the diet breaks and using, like, because I love, it depends obviously on person, but I love using reverse dieting or that kind of approach for some people. It's not going to be right for everyone, but like many people who I work with are some yo-yo dieters who have had like a longer dieting. They have been years, at least in the mindset of trying to lose weight. Or some of them, some women told that they have been diet since 6 years, like 40 years. They are now almost 50s, and their mom have put them in a diet when they were 6 or 7 years old. And since then, it have been always in their mind that I need to keep losing weight. And it's often that cycle of restricting, regaining, restricting. Either sometimes it's a carbs, basically every kind of diet. And for those people, I said that why you wouldn't start actually looking how much you can eat without starting to gain too much fat. And that is like what you tell. And often what happens is that if those, like I said, if that maintenance calories should be way over 2,000, and then somebody's eating 1,400, I said that eat 1,600. Then a week after, go for 1,008, and see how it starts to happen. And usually what happens is that energy levels, like they are getting higher, maybe scale weight is going up, but and they might even start to actually losing weight. So kind of breaking that plateau. I'm not telling that what is actually happening is that either it's a combination that they are now actually more accurate. They are not maybe having those kind of pinch or pinches or cravings what they had before, what they were not even recognizing, or they are simply just a little bit more active, having better quality workouts when they are actually allowing themselves to give more energy. And I know that there is probably, if you look science, there is not very much like benefits of doing that, like that you gotta do reverse dieting. But that's my take on reverse dieting. What are you using reverse dieting, or what thoughts you have?
I love everything you just said, and I would, if I have a client coming to me, he says he or she is eating 1,200 calories, and they're 200 pounds, just making this up. Like, I'm gonna be okay, cool. Let's start at 2,000 calories. Like, I will do what you would do, which is just like, hey, we're gonna aim. Like, I just think it's important to disentangle what you're doing with what's happening. What you're doing is you are giving them permission to eat more. You're encouraging them to consistently, not in a binge restrict cycle, on a consistent day-to-day basis, aim for higher calories. And I say aim for, not eat, because they are aiming at higher calories and probably on the whole actually eating less, because through the permission you've given them, it's a weird word, but you've encouraged them to, instead of aiming at 13, aim at 18, because at 1,300 calories, a couple things happen. One, they never hit that, or two, they sometimes hit that, but sometimes they're way over. That's not great psychologically. And on the net, they're probably eating more total calories on average. And so what you've done is like, all right, instead of doing 13 sometimes and 3,000 other times, let's do 19 all the time, which might be the same amount of food, might be less average food, but it feels to them like it will help. It not feels to them. It very often will help them get out of that restrictive mindset, because it's a more consistent feeling of eating more instead of eat less, binge, eat less, binge. This feels like consistent. A lot of people will report, oh my God, it feels like so much food. Oh my God, it feels like so much food, because on a day-to-day, they've never had this much food. Occasionally they've binged and had drinks and gone out and had fries and the burgers and whatever. That's all good, but it's all fine. But I just mean those moments are much higher in calorie. It offsets those times. And so what you just said in terms of, hey, I have a client comes eating what you know to be not true.
Yeah.
That they're not actually eating that on a very
But
consistent basis.
I'm not going to commit that to my client because they are
Sure.
always, they know it, they are right, they have right.
Sure.
And I can't tell if you know that you tell as a coach that you are lying.
Right. And they're not, and sometimes
You know
they're
who's
not
gonna
lying.
lose.
Sometimes it's very easy to, it's just very easy to think you're eating a certain amount and forget that that's missing stuff. And, you know, you're kind of offhand. What a lot of people say is I'm eating 1,200. What they mean is 1,200 is in my Fitness Pal. That's what's on my Fitness Pal.
Yeah.
It's not actually what's happening. That's like the thing they're aiming at. What your situation often, maybe not the, I wouldn't put a percentage on it, but often that leads to some positive things, whether it's fat loss or not, it leads to some positive things that you know, can help them get out of that restrictive mindset. Maybe you can help them get out of that binge restrict. You can open them up to, like you said, better workouts and feeling better and getting out of that binge restrict cycle. And it can have very positive outcomes. The reason that I've been on like this little, like that, you know, been talking about this a bit is that there are people out there that, like, I just think it's important that we all understand what's happening. So you, like you just said, where you're like, I know that what's happening is that their average calories are not going up, that they might be going down, but at the very least, we're getting a bit more of a consistent calorie intake, which for somebody who's been binging and restricting can be very mentally healthy for them.
Oh, yeah.
For some people, you know, calorie cycling is fine, but for some people who've been in this like very binge restrict cycle, getting them some continuity, eating an amount that feels good and getting consistent energy levels and all, can be an amazing thing. And that's awesome. You know, that's what's happening. You know that you haven't done anything. You know that they didn't increase 700 calories a day and now they're losing weight. Like, you know that physiologically that hasn't happened. Now, my issue is only if you are, not you, but if a coach is telling the person that that's what's happening, or that they've used that physiological lie to sell people to get them into the program. And the third context, I guess, is for those people who do this and they actually just start gaining weight because they're, for whatever reason, this process of aiming at higher calories, trying to be more, you know, eating 1,900 every day instead of 1,200 sometimes and 5,000 other times, has actually put them in a net calorie surplus. Now, what happens is they start to gain weight, and the coach thinks, I'm not really sure what the coach thinks, to be totally honest with you, that, okay, this person's metabolism has been damaged and they really need to stick this out and they need to keep going. They need to keep gaining and they need to push calories higher, and this will fix them. I have a huge issue with that, because for every one person that you and I are talking about that joins a group that is like, reverse dieting, this is what I need, and finds some success, there's 10 people who gained weight they didn't want to because they were told their metabolism was broken and what they needed to do was eat more to fix it. And so for those people I speak now, there are so many of them, and they end up being our clients at some point where they're like, I gained 30 pounds in a reverse diet because I thought my metabolism was broken. And my coach just told me to keep going and keep eating more and keep pushing calories up. I promise you guys, if like metabolic adaptation, we can talk, you know, we have some time here if we want to talk about it, but metabolic adaptation is a real thing. If you lose weight, your body adapts. If you gain weight, your body adapts. A lot of people forget that second part. If you lose weight and then you gain all of it back, and you lose weight, you gain all of it back, every time you gain that weight, you undo the adaptations, all the way down to people who we studied on The Biggest Loser who lost hundreds of pounds in the most unrealistic way. We studied them 6-10 years later. And what we saw is that the people who had no more metabolic adaptation were the people who gained all the weight back. So if you've lost weight and then you've gained it back, promise you, whatever adaptations happened on the way down, they're gone on the way up. You know, you can't undereat your way to weight gain. And so if you are somebody who's gained weight and you're overweight, let's say, or you have body fat that you want to lose, your issue is not metabolic adaptation. Your metabolism is operating at full capacity, actually, because you've been in a surplus. And so if you are a person and you hear this podcast and you're in a reverse diet, or you think about a reverse diet and you're consistently gaining weight doing that, I promise you, stop doing that. I'm not saying mentally there can't be a decent outcome from pushing calories up more, but you're not fixing metabolism. And so your metabolism is running just fine if you're gaining weight.
Just little addition. Sorry to interrupt you. I just want to like what you said, like that if it's in the long term, like in the beginning, like it's totally normal if you start to eat, if you are a person who is eating very little and start adding more calories. So I can tell from experience, and it's around 10 days, 2 weeks your scale weight, because you might have a little bit more food in your stomach, in your system, your body holds temporarily a little bit more water, so that scale weight is going to spike within first day. So don't, and you have to really, like, if you are someone, you have to trust the process. You have to allow yourself to eat more calories for at least, I would say, 2, 3, 4 weeks. If it's not that, you are not doing any damage within 3, 4 weeks. Let's say that in the worst case, you are starting to eat more. It's in a so short period of time, you are not making progress. But if you are like, you start adding calories, you eat more, and after in a second day you said, oh my God, I gained 3 pounds or 4 pounds or like 2 kilos. Wait, that I'm out of here. That is not going to, you are not going to get any benefits of it. So it's I'm sorry, you meant like in a long term that weight gain, just that somebody is concerned that, you started to eat more and gained weight, like having like a weekend off and step on the scale on Monday, like everybody's gaining weight in so short period of time.
Totally agree. I'm talking like a period of time that you can, in a very realistic headspace, deem a trend. Not like I'm up a pound or 2 over the last 2 weeks. Like that might be just like you said, more food in you, more glycogen, a little bit of water. Maybe your training is better, and all of a sudden, that brings some glycogen storage as well, and all of those things. I definitely think it's worth the note of zoom out and let's look at this over a slightly longer term. The one thing I just would say, just for people listening, is the reverse dieting comes in different shapes and sizes. Like reverse dieting is a term that is just made up, by the way. It's not like this is not like a very scientific term. And so if like what a lot of people hear is, I'll post about reverse dieting and then they'll comment with a context that I totally agree with. And so the context is, okay, Jordan, so at the end of my deficit, I shouldn't reverse diet back to maintenance. It's like that, for me, the definition of reverse dieting is there's just one thing. It's I'm at the end of a deficit and I need to now find my new maintenance at my new body weight, shape, size, activity level. Like I need to, like reverse dieting just means getting rid of the deficit. So that you absolutely have to do. I mean, like at some point your deficit's over and you should find your new maintenance. I think that's great. Everyone's got to do that. The other context that you and I talked about is taking the client and having them aim for higher calories. Like you might let them frame it like a reverse diet, but you're taking that, hey, I'm eating 1,200 calorie person, and saying, let's eat 1,800. And in the back of your mind that this is very likely still less than they were eating, but might feel really great and might be a really good net on their eating habits, mental state, all of that stuff. And so I think that we need to define, when someone's like, hey, what do you think of reverse dieting? I'm like, in what context, for what goal? And so if it's like, yeah, I'm at the end of a deficit, I want to get to my new maintenance. Great. You should do that. If that's what we're calling a reverse diet, that's freaking awesome. In that context of, hey, I'm done with my deficit, I want to get to my new maintenance. If we look at on the flow chart on that side, just talking about that context, there's no real benefit to doing it super slowly. But I'm actually not against doing it kind of slowly. Like just because there's no physiological advantage to adding 50 calories a week, going super duper slow, doesn't mean that there isn't a time, and you know this, that you might err on the slower side. If I have a client who's has a history of binge restrict, that is really afraid of weight gain, let's say, like really doesn't want to gain weight, and he or she feels fine, like biofeedback wise, they're like, I don't feel terrible right now. Then we might be like, okay, you don't feel terrible. You don't want to gain weight back. You have a history of flip-flopping big calorie swings. Maybe we'll just go a little slower. If I have a client who feels terrible and isn't afraid of a couple pounds of weight gain, all right, we're going to add calories faster. And so I'm not against going on the slower end. I'm against going slower than you need to. If you have a client who doesn't feel very good, is still losing weight and feels really bad and wants to get out of the deficit, and you're like, no, we got to go 50 calories a week. Sorry, dude. Like that obviously I think is not the best plan, but I have no problem with going on the slower end in that process, if that's what you and your coach feel is best for you.
No, it's just to summarize basically that if the reverse dieting, it's a tool what you could be using, but there is basically no additional except like those what we talk like kind of how to say it, emotional difference. Like if you are someone who is like really scared of gaining that scale weight, or you are worried that what is going to happen, am I going to gain fat, am I going to be like someone who have lost a lot of weight, and then you know, they know that they in the past they have had really bad behaviors, and they don't want to become that same person as they were before. And then I said, okay, then, you know, but you don't want to be in a diet all the time. So then it's that kind of winning some time doing it and learning and seeing it, that okay, I'm not going to be that same person what I was before, but basically you could be going like if you have a either you are in a deficit and you could go like right away next day into your maintenance if you, or what it should be. But in when you are doing it, taking a little bit time with the reverse dieting or whatever you call it, like raising your calories closer to that maintenance, it's just a tool to use what is how to get it. So I'm happy to hear like that we have kind of, or we have actually, we think exactly the same. It's just that how you always tell it.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, I think that if there's a take home from today, it's just to be a little bit less emotionally attached to what you think should be happening, and just live in reality and be like, hey, I'm not losing weight. That means I'm not in a deficit. Now, what am I going to do with that information? And I promise you, all of your options of things to do, the one that's not on there is fix my metabolism by eating more. Now, you might eat more to take a break. You might eat more because further weight loss. Be very clear with a lot of people. When I do those 3 options in the weight loss like if somebody gets a plateau and I'm like, hey, you could eat less, we could lower calories, you could move a bit more, which there's not, you know, sometimes that's not always the best plan, especially if somebody's already quite active. It doesn't do a lot to go to it doesn't, going from 1200 steps to 1400 steps like is marginal difference from what we know in terms of just movement efficiency and energy compensation. So often it's a calorie reduction in intake. When we look at those options, like sometimes people are like, I don't want to eat less. And I'm like, great. Like that is your only option if you want to lose more. You don't have to do that though. And very often it's about recognizing where it becomes not worth it for you anymore. And that's a lot of times people think that there's a way around the eating less part. And there just isn't. And so that's where reverse dieting comes into prey on those people. Cause like, hey, I have a trick for you that doesn't involve the eating less and the being hungrier. It actually involves eating more and feeling great. And so, that I think a lot of times, a lot of what I've done in the last couple of years with people that get to plateaus is be a bit more, not, you know, just dealing with them as an individual, but just certainly like framing like, hey, these are our options. And at some point, as you start to eat less, as you start to lose more weight, as you get leaner, the eat less option becomes less and less worth it. Cause it's just, you don't want to do that because life sucks. And so I'm very happy when people end up being like, you know what? I hear you. These are my only options, and I don't want to do that option anymore. And so I'm either going to be patient or let's pivot and let's work on, you know, maintaining what I've done already.
Because that is exactly what I feel like you just said, that when I have somebody and then, you know, they are like obviously really worried like that, you know, there is a plateau, I'm not seeing any progress, that what should I be doing? And then like really, like you said, having that conversation, what the options are. And if you're like that, you know, you have made a good amount of progress and you have been kind of being in that mental state of losing weight for several months or even years. And then you are like telling that what you would say if we would focus that on something else. And even that goal is still at some point to lose fat, but for, let's say that taking focus for workouts, feeding your body more and seeing how much you are actually able to eat and with the purpose. I think that is that makes what makes for most of my clients, like it's so eye-opening that I said that, okay, you have still like in your mind, you still need to lose weight, but or lose fat. But when you are allowing yourself, maybe first time in years, you are telling that, okay, I'm not even trying to lose weight, I want to maintain my weight. And that is then they are like starting to feel like that, okay, then I do it for a month or two, but after that it often happens like that, holy shit, I feel so much better than ever in my life, and that do I really need to lose weight more? And that is like that, okay, maybe I do it for shorter period of time or totally different, like what in the past. And those are those huge realizations what often happens when you are actually learning to take, like using maintenance periods and taking some diet breaks. And that's it's more like a that mental break what is helping in how to break those plateaus.
Yep. And mental breaks can be awesome. And that's there's no we're not here to make them sound like they're useless. They can be awesome. They can be great. I just have an issue with the framing of them in a way that you're waving a magic wand, and the defense that will, if someone was here who like pitches reverse dieting, like quite often the defense is, why do you guys care so much about what is or is not happening physiologically if it works? And my counter is, occasionally people have a good outcome. And I love when people have a good outcome. People came to my page and they're like, hey, Jordan, I did this thing that you're talking about, and it worked out really great for me. And I'm like, that's awesome. There's 10 other people who did this and gained a whole bunch of weight they didn't want to, and were told to keep going and told to keep pushing, and they weren't doing it well enough. And, there's a couple issues, but the big one is, I know that people have positive outcomes occasionally. You can get those people, the same people who are going to have a positive outcome when you lie to them. You could get them a positive outcome by being a little bit more upfront with them. Like the people who you mentioned, hey, 1,200 and I give them 1,800, and that situation has a happy ending. We can get those people their happy ending without the collateral damage of all the other people who didn't need that approach, or, ended up gaining weight they didn't want to. I think the overall amount of people we can help, and the overall amount of people that we can have not gain a whole bunch of weight they didn't want to, like, we can do better. It's not like just because somebody had a good outcome, I'm super happy for them. We can still get them that outcome by being a little bit more truthful with what's happening. Hey, you weren't actually eating 1,200. Let's work on aiming at a little bit higher. Let's be a little bit more consistent. Let's focus on gym and energy level and performance. And there's still not easy, but there's still an absolutely totally practical way to get those people a positive outcome without all the other people who are 20 pounds up in a reverse diet who are like, I didn't want this over the last 8 months or something. I think we can do better in terms of our ratio of getting success with people without the people gaining a ton of weight that didn't want to.
Yeah, but it's just I think it's the very easy way to market something. You say that you start to eat more, you are starting to lose weight, and then you add some hormones there, like that there is it's missing this part and this part, and sales are coming in. So why to mind telling the truth?
Yeah, and then you can market the one, your one client who had this amazing transformation, and the other 10 people they don't get talked about, and it's unbelievable. I mean, it's tough to. I'm here selling you got to eat less. Yeah. You're here selling you got to eat more. I mean, I would pick your route any day of the week.
Yeah, for sure. If it's like it sounds more interesting, like but it's like really, like we talk, like it's really like finding, because it would be so easy to say that it really depends on so many situations, like what is your dieting history, how long you have been in a deficit, what kind of schedule you have in a work, in a real life, like what makes the most sense. And then but like I said, options are those three to get out of plateau, and most likely there is nothing like, obviously it could be that there is some thyroid issues, some hormonal issues for some reason, which are causing, usually if you have been eating like very little, they might, or missing some nutrients, they might cause some hormonal issues. But I would say that 90% at least, it's just about being really honest and seeing what is actually happening and going on with your food intake, or other things what matters to you, like sleep and stress and that kind of stuff. But it's not that complicated. It's actually quite simple, but obviously there are so many different kind of things and emotions what are going on, and that is often where people get really confused.
Yeah, I think it's more empowering. I think at first the idea that maybe it's I don't phrase this in a way that's compassionate, but like at first the idea that it could be your fault. And what I mean is like that it could be just that you're eating a bit more than you think you are, or that you're not as consistent with your calories as you are. Like at first, that is disheartening. Like it's difficult to take that in. And so it's really easy to push it externally and say, oh, something's wrong with my metabolism. Like something's happening to me. But I think once you start to act upon the idea that it actually might be things you're doing, I always think the idea of personal responsibility should be empowering, not disheartening. Like it should, like, even if it is that you've been doing something less good, like it's still empowering to know that it is in your hands, not in some magical damage to my metabolism that I don't want to turn this into a weight loss is all personal responsibility. It sure as shit is not. There's a ton of genetic, environmental factors.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God. Weight loss is not just personal responsibility. Hell no. But there is a personal responsibility column. There is a column of personal, there's a part of the pie chart that is personal responsibility. And so I think that I found that a lot of people are like, you know what? It was incredibly empowering to realize, hey, I was eating 2,500 on the weekends. And, I thought I was eating 1,200, but I really wasn't. And that's actually incredibly empowering. It's not disheartening, but it feels disheartening at first.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, I had a couple of weeks ago boys weekend, and we were counting like that how many, like you don't even think about it, but then you look in the morning like how many bottles of beer and wine what we had, and then I was like that, holy shit, if I count this, I was just made a joke. I was counting like those calories. I got like I don't know 4,000 calories per day just from beer and wine and everything. So. And then everything what you were eating, and then I'm thinking like that. I didn't count accurately, but if I'm just thinking that I have been so consistent for a whole week, and then having a 2-3 days like that, I don't have to wonder why I'm not seeing progress.
Sure. What did you guys do? What was this boys' weekend? Where you guys?
We were having we are old friends from Finland. We turned 40. Year ago. We supposed to do it already a year ago just to celebrate our birthday. I haven't seen for years, and as now at this age you are not those meetings we are living in different countries, different cities, and you have to organize at least 6 months ahead, and was a good weekend, and had a lot of fun, obviously not with exercise or nutrition wise, but those are not it was a good weekend. So that's
awesome.
How about you?
Yeah, I have those weekends too, for sure. Definitely. I've been on all extremes of neuroticism and like counting every macro to the, I'm not saying counting every macro to the gram is bad, but I've taken it very far, and I've been in a place where I've not enjoyed my life, and I'm just not in that place right now. I'm in a very good place where I'm just, I don't know, I've come full circle. I think I didn't come out of the womb feeling the way I feel right now, which is more comfortable with my body, not trying to look a certain way for anyone else, and trying mostly to be healthy. And that involves being healthy mentally, which means, occasionally not worrying about certain things, calories, alcohol, sleep, my workouts, trying to really find and connect with what's going to make me mentally and physically the happiest long-term, which usually means not taking it to the absolute extreme.
Yeah, no, I'm exactly the same. I have never like took myself like really like focusing on, I more focus on how I feel and on overall health, like in a long term, what is like really for me what matters at the moment. Obviously, when I was younger, I was an athlete, professional ice hockey player, and at the time was like more about athletic performance, and but never aimed to get like really lean or visible abs or that kind of stuff. That have never been. It's now it's more about like just feeling great, and to be honest, being at 41 and feeling probably the best ever in my life, and awesome. That's just something what I do at the moment. And it's like you said, that it's not only about being perfect all the time. It's you need to have some moments and things where that it's not going to be perfect, but just allowing yourself to enjoy life also, and sacrificing from being perfect role model for fitness, for enjoyment.
Yep. Trying.
Awesome. Thank you, Jordan, for your time. Could you tell still for people where to find you, how to work with you, all what you want to share? So
sure. I'm on Instagram at Jordan Lips Fitness. you have a question, shoot me a DM. Happy to chat with people. I run a group program. Everything's in my bio on Instagram. That's definitely the best place to find me. Podcast, Instagram, all that good stuff. It's on there.
Awesome. And you have also your podcast. I love listening. You didn't mention it. I mentioned it. I loved it. So what is the name of your podcast?
It's called Where Optimal Meets Practical, and that tends to be the theme of the episodes. It's just, you know, I'm a nerd. I love figuring out, you know, what the physiology and what the best way to do things is, but you know, we're trying to make it also practical for the individual and make sure that it's applicable and all of that stuff. And so trying to find that happy middle ground.
Awesome. Thank you for coming to my show, and talk to you soon.
Thanks, man.